Testing. Testing.
You guys, when you come up, most of you have on masks, and you should have on masks, but when you come up to get your coat put on, take your mask off. Have your mask on now.
We're ready to start.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for those in attendance, and thank you for those that are viewing. We do apologize for the late start. We had some technical difficulties, but we are up and running. And so I am pleased to go ahead and get this program started. I would like to ask Dr. Woods to come and do our opening prayer.
Good morning. Let us pray. Gracious God, our Lord, we pause to give you an incredible God who deserves an incredible praise. From the rising of the sun until the going down of the same, you are still worthy to be praised. We thank you, O God, for your unmistakable and unceasing love, which has brought us safely to this moment in time to celebrate both the life and legacy of George Howard and our students who have become PhD candidates in the midst of the COVID pandemic. Now, O God, we invoke the power of your Holy Spirit to be present with us as we open this lecture, for without your presence, our understanding will be in vain. As we partake in this intellectual exchange, enlarge the territories of our minds with new insights that we may more critically think about solutions to resolve the healthcare concerns that plague our nation. And above all, O God, grant us the fortitude needed to excel in our work. As we go forth from this gathering, grant each of us an endurance and stamina like that of George Howard, that we may run with perseverance and finish the race marked out for us. And continue to remind us that all that we do here, all that we accomplish, is for the greater glory of you and for the service of all mankind. Thank you, O Lord, for being our source of guidance and our strength, and for ushering us into this present day. To you, King eternal, immortal, invisible, the only God, be honor and glory forever and ever. Amen.
And next, I would like to ask our Dean, Dr. Motley, to come and welcome you all.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the 37th Annual George H. Howard Jr. Memorial Lecture and Candidacy Ceremony. We are happy that you can share in this event with us today. COVID has prevented us from having this program for the past 2 years. Therefore, we will be honoring 10 students today who have passed their PhD candidacy or qualifying exam in the past 2 years. This exam is also called a preliminary exam, which consists of a written research proposal and an oral presentation. The students are graded on the written and the oral part of the exam. And this exam takes place during the second phase of their training, which is called the major emphasis phase. The first phase of their training is the core phase, in which they take a core curriculum. And so during the major emphasis phase, the students choose a mentor and they start working on their research project, and they also complete advanced courses. And so once they do this, it culminates into them taking their qualifying exam or preliminary exam. And then once the students pass this exam, they are admitted to candidacy. And this is a very significant achievement and a very important milestone in their careers as doctoral students. In the third phase of their training, which they are beginning now, is called the dissertation phase, and they'll do their dissertation research projects, which will culminate in them getting the first author publication, which they'll defend, and then they will be able to graduate. And so today we welcome the research mentors for being here to support the students. And we would also like to give a special welcome to our keynote speaker, Dr. Lillian Brady, and thank her for joining us today to share in her knowledge and wisdom. And we also pause today to honor George Henry Howard Jr., who Mr. Jerome Arsenault will tell you more about in the occasion. And I would also like to welcome the family and friends of our candidates. And I know you all are streaming and couldn't be with us here today, but we welcome you for joining us on this occasion. And I want everyone to know that we are very proud of our graduate students, and I want to again welcome everyone for being with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Motley. So, George Henry Howard Jr. was a doctoral candidate in the Division of Biomedical Sciences, as well as a student in the School of Medicine at Meharry Medical College. Dr. Howard was considered a promising biomedical scientist and physician prior to his untimely death on December 14, 1985. A 1977 graduate of the University of Tennessee, where he earned a Bachelor's of Science in Biology, he was one of the first students recruited into Meharry's MD-PhD program. During his time at Meharry Medical College, Dr. Howard excelled with both high scholastic achievement and community involvement. Dr. Howard's honors and achievements include the SCEE Graduate Student Research Award, Outstanding Young Men of America Award, and participation in the Chancellor's Committee on Blacks. With community-driven purpose, Dr. Howard belonged to the Big Brothers of America and served as a student organizer and fundraiser for sickle cell anemia treatment and prevention. Dr. Howard was a hardworking member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Formerly the bacillus of his undergraduate chapter, Iota Beta, at the University of Tennessee, he went on to become the keeper of records and seal in Meharry's own Delta chapter. In 1975, Dr. Howard was elected Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated's Omega Man of the Year. In recognition of his dedication and hard work, George H. Howard Jr.'s Doctorate of Philosophy degree from the Department of Microbiology was posthumously conferred at the 125th commencement ceremony held in May of 2000. Each year, the Graduate Student Association honors Dr. Howard with a memorial lecture. These lectures are in recognition of a man who was an outstanding student and a true Meharryan. The lecture series allows the graduate school, Meharry family, and us all to share his spirit and inspire us in honor of the legacy of Dr. George H. Howard, Jr.
This is the only heritage lecture in a series of about 15 on this campus that's named for a student. All of the others are named for big-time administrators or big-time professors. But the George Henry Howard is the only one also that's run by students. George was from Fayetteville, Tennessee. He and his sister Beverly, there were only two children of the family, Mrs. Marie Howard and, of course, George Henry Howard Sr., their mother and father. I met him when he was applying to medical schools from the University of Tennessee at Knoxville. And I indicated to him what did he really want to do in life. And he said he would like to practice medicine, wasn't sure exactly what, but he also would like to be involved in academics. So he chose to come to Meharry and was doing very well. Then one summer, he had a little cousin in Fayetteville who was getting into all sorts of trouble as this boy was coming into his teens. And George's aunt and uncle asked George if he would bring him up here to Meharry and see if he could kind of turn him around and get him away from some of the bad habits as he was picking up. So George brought the boy here, and they were living in the tower. And as I understand it, there was an argument. George was always pushing this boy on academic things. And there was an argument about some issue. They disagreed, and so either one of them said, well, let's just go up to the library and check it out, since you think you're right and I think I'm right. As they were running up the hill to the library, George fell over. Well, he had a heart attack, which proved to be fatal. They did carry him to the emergency room. I was called to come and be in the emergency room when his mother got here to tell her what had happened to his son. And kind of tough, but we did it. And when she pulled herself together, she went back to Fayetteville and she asked me to do his eulogy. And I did. The school provided 2 vans with students to go down, and we went for this eulogy, and they were very hospitable. And as I talked with her shortly after his eulogy, she wanted to know what could she do for Harry, and I said, well, what about starting a scholarship in his name? And she and various friends of hers, etc., they did start this scholarship. But as time would have it and fate would guide it, when Dr. Fatima Lima became dean, the first year she was dean, we asked her again if she would do it. And she, of course, simply said, why not? So at that next commencement, he got his degree. His mother and his sister came, and the degree was presented to his mother. He was a very intellectual type person. He had a very inquiring mind. He always asked questions like, what if? He was punctual, but he was a very no-nonsense guy, and he worked hard. He was a supportive person. He would do things for people if he felt that they had the need, and I think that came out of his family. I think that he left the legacy of we are scholars, we are sensitive to our communities, and we will help those who are disenfranchised. But first of all, I think he left a feeling of high scholarship and that we can achieve, and we're as good as anyone else at any other graduate school or any other school in the country. Always there will be some students who would need to be lifted as we rise. I should hope that you will always be proud of yourselves, that you will take care of yourselves physically, mentally, and spiritually, and that you would always reach back. The only way we can move as a group of people is to reach back and pull forward and surge forward. And one of these days, we will reach the mountaintop. Be proud of yourselves.
all today about a little bit about my journey to studying neuroscience research and how I ended up studying sex and hormone-specific regulation of learning and memory circuits underlying addiction. So I'm going to talk to you about my academic life and journey to how I got to where I am now, ending with where I'm going, and also discuss the research I performed as well as some of the most notable academic achievements I received in my field along the way. And what I hope you will receive by the end of this are a few of the lessons I learned, particularly while I was in graduate school and during my postdoc, that will help you navigate your academic journey more smoothly than I did and that myself and others may have. So I'm a Southerner, and I'll walk you through that. So I was born in Little Rock, Arkansas. I spent like 6 months in foster care, and then my parents adopted me at 6 months of age and raised me in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. So if you're familiar with East Tennessee, it's very white. So I was one of maybe 5 black students in my grade or school a lot of the times, but that actually prepared me for graduate school and postdoc at a PWI, now that I think about it. But so in the 99 and the 2000s, we moved to Jackson, Mississippi. So if you're familiar with Mississippi and Jackson, it's very black, so it was a nice little switch. It kind of had me a little confused a little bit as a child, but race was a big part of my upbringing and my education. But Mississippi was where I had teachers that looked like me, or advocated for me, and it's where, I kind of started to develop, myself and my confidence and whatnot. So that's why I consider Mississippi home. Plus that's where my parents are, so, yeah. So I went to the rest of middle school and high school in Jackson. I did undergrad and master's in Mississippi as well. So I did my PhD in Birmingham, Alabama, and then here in Nashville doing my postdoc. So I'll get into more of that. Okay, so academically, my research journey started in Jackson. I went to Murrah High School. At Murrah, I knew I liked my science classes, and that was only solidified when I was chosen to be a part of there's a base pair program, so it paired high school students with faculty at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. And so I did like a year-long research project there, and that was my first laboratory research experience. I then went to Alcorn State University. So even though I had just completed that high school research experience, in the black community, if you like science, you'd go to medical school, you become a medical doctor. There's nothing other than that. So I was biochemistry pre-med, ended up getting a Bachelor of Science in chemistry, but in the chemistry department, we had to do summer internships because there wasn't a lot of research experience on campus. So I did one at Alcorn, one at Indiana University School of Medicine, or IUPUI, and another at the U.S. Army Engineer Research and Development Center after my senior year. And so even though I had done all these internships, I tried to still go to medical school. I took the MCAT twice. I got atrocious scores both times. It just wasn't my ministry to go to medical school, and that's okay. But I was set up in the chemistry department to do a lot of research. So I ended up getting an opportunity to do the Master of Science in Biotechnology program at Alcorn. It was new. They were trying to get students to do it, and I was like, I'll do it if y'all pay for it. And they were like, okay. So always ask for, you never know. The worst they can say is no, and then you figure it out some other way. But they ended up getting that paid for and done with, and so I did my master's there. And at that time, I had research experience from high school and undergrad, and I applied for PhD programs. And I applied for 10 programs, got interviews at 5, and got into 4. So, some doors may be closed, but others will open, and you'll know, that this is the route that you need to go. So I got this, I like my parents. I wanted to be near my family, so I was discouraged from staying in the South, but I went to UAB, and I applied for like interdisciplinary programs because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. It was kind of like a considered a late decision on going into graduate school anyway. So I did interdisciplinary programs, and at UAB I was in the cell molecular and developmental biology program, and as a part of the biology program you could rotate in any, any lab, because most labs use a cell or, in biomedical research. So I ended up doing some neuroscience and really got interested in neurobiology, and that's how I got interested in the neuroscience part of that. So research-wise, in the first year at UAB, you have to take your core classes. I'm not a good class taker and all that stuff, so you can't get a C, or if you get too many, then they ask you to leave the program, all that type of thing. So right off the bat, I got 2 C's, and I was like, okay, so we gotta do something different. I'm crying, I'm calling my mama, she praying, everybody is, we getting everybody together. So, I had to figure out, how to study and how to really understand the information for comprehension, right? So I ended up getting a B, thank you, Lord, in the cell biology class and in the rest of my classes. But because I got those C's, I had to retake those first 2 classes the next year. So, I'm doing my rotations. I wanted to join the third lab rotation, and that PI did not want me because I had to retake those classes, because she said it would take away time from the lab. And, that's her, that's your decision, that's fine. So I had to do a 4th lab rotation, and, you're looking at your classmates and everybody's joined their labs, and you're like, man, I'm still trying to figure it out, okay. But, it worked out. That 4th lab rotation was good, and everything went okay in that lab. So I in this lab I started looking at learning and memory deficits and psychiatric disease states. And so nearly every psychiatric disease or neurological disorder like schizophrenia, autism, depression, anxiety, epilepsy, addiction have impairments in cognition, and that's defined as a deficit in learning, memory, perception, and problem solving. And the brain is a functional unit. It's made up of a lot of neurons, and they communicate with each other through electrical and chemical signals. And so my PhD work used this PGC1 alpha knockout mouse model to focus on a specific dysregulation within a subset of inhibitory interneurons. And the dysregulation of these inhibitory interneurons is a consistent feature in the brain cells of deceased schizophrenia patients. So I was studying that circuitry. And so the learning and memory components of cognition depend heavily on the proper functioning of the hippocampus, and it's part of the medial temporal lobe of the limbic system, and it controls motivation, emotion, learning, and memory. And so the main technique that I performed and is my expertise is in brain slice electrophysiology. And so it's the study of electrical properties in biological cells and tissues. And so I was able to use this technique to electrically stimulate these brain slices and record the transmission of neuronal signals in these slices. And so with this technique, I was able to apply different medications and imaging techniques to brain slices and see how they would affect the spread of activity of these neurons in the hippocampus of our knockout mice compared to our control mice. And what we found was, through my research, was that the application of antipsychotic medications like haloperidol, so it blocks specific dopamine receptors. It enhances the spread of activity in normal brain slices, but in our knockout mice, it reduced that spread of activity. So what that suggested is that haloperidol may be helping with the hallucinations and the delusions that schizophrenia patients may be dealing with, but it may make the learning, memory, and cognitive impairments worse. So that was kind of like a big finding for my graduate work. When I graduated, I only had 1 paper. My graduate PI was very hands-off, which was good and bad. It was good because sometimes I just want to be left alone, and in other ways I really needed some more mentorship and some more guidance. So while I was in my PhD, I was on a couple training grants, so that helped to make me a little more competitive. And I absolutely was applying to any program that was for underrepresented students. I applied for it because I was, usually the only in my program. And so I was like, these are perfect for me, so I'm just gonna keep doing it. And it definitely helped me to become more competitive, I think, on, at least for my CV and on the market and whatnot. So I did this UAB Roadmap Scholars Program at UAB. It was run by the only black woman faculty at UAB in that department at the time. And she had a program called Postdoc School, and I was like, all right, I'll see what this postdoc is about, because at that time I was like, I'm anti-postdoc, I'm anti-academia, I'm done, like I don't want to do this anymore. So I went to the program and learned about it, and I was like, all right, we'll give it a try, because at that point I really was only trained to do, research, and really, at least I felt, to do, a postdoc. So I applied to this Academic Pathways Fellowship program here at Vanderbilt, and they was new, they were trying to figure this out. It initially started where they were bringing postdocs in that were, underrepresented, and to train you as a postdoc for you to be faculty at Vanderbilt. But I don't think they really thought that through, because departments need funding to actually make you faculty, which I'm learning now because I'm on the job market. But anyway, the point is, it didn't go how they said it was gonna go. But I still had the funding, so I was like, whatever, we'll see what Vanderbilt is like. If you're in the South, you hear Vanderbilt, it's like, oh, it's, whatever. But it's cool, but anyway. So I started at Vanderbilt and in 2017, and I ignored a lot of red flags. So one, I switched labs in 2018, and I will tell you why. So I started before I was ready. I really was pressured to start my postdoc as soon as I graduated. So I graduated on a Saturday and I started my postdoc on a Monday. Don't do that. So whatever you do after you finish your PhD, please take a break. If you can, please take a break. That probably played a role into what I had to deal with. So when I started my PI, she immediately, maybe a week later, she went to her summer home in Mexico, which is cool. That's goals, I want to do that. But we didn't get a chance to develop a mentor-mentee relationship. So she wasn't there to really see how I was or was not getting trained. And we didn't really have that relationship for me to be able to tell her, hey, I don't think I'm getting the training and the mentorship that I need. Because, like I said, my grad PI was very hands-off, but now I wanted, somebody to really guide me on what I'm doing. So there were more things that I dealt with, potentially some, experimental sabotage by lab mates, stuff like that. But we get through it. But there was a lot of things that happened where eventually I made a decision that, this isn't the right space for me. I gotta switch. So that's why I say try to have your own funding, because I was able to take that funding that I had through the Academic Pathways program with me to another lab. So I joined the Calipari lab. Erin Calipari, she had just started her lab maybe 3 or 4 months before I joined her lab. She didn't have to take me, because I'm learning now, when you budget for a lab, you have a certain set of mind of what the type of people that you want to hire to get your lab up and running. So she didn't have to take me at all, but I had my own funding, so I think that probably helped. So she took me in. She immediately put me on, and started working, and I was dealing with, the trauma from being in that first lab, and still really trying to get over the weight of graduate school and getting a PhD and all of that too. But I immediately got on some papers, the first paper out of the lab, I was, an author on that. So I'm getting papers, I'm doing things, it's not perfect, but we worked it out. And she's been a really, really good mentor. So even if you are in a bad situation, there are good mentors out there that will help you and do your thing. So now I'm in Erin Calipari's lab at Vanderbilt, and my research focuses on sex differences in addiction, and it's been pinpointed as a significant biological factor that impacts the prevalence and prognosis of substance use disorder. So Women represent a particularly vulnerable population, and they've consistently been shown to be more susceptible to addiction. So in both animal models and human subjects, females show increases in drug taking, and they transition to substance use disorder faster than males. In contrast, basic and preclinical studies for substance use disorder have historically either focused almost entirely on male subjects or overwhelmingly neglected to analyze data by sex. And at the hub of female vulnerability to addiction is the dopamine system, and specifically dopaminergic projections in the mesolimbic dopamine pathway. And so it connects the ventral tegmental area to the nucleus accumbens. And in the nucleus accumbens, nearly all drugs of abuse increase dopamine levels, and it's regulated by certain components, and I'm specifically looking at terminal and microcircuit regulation of the accumbens. And so a really powerful regulator of terminal and microcircuit dopamine release are cholinergic interneurons, and they signal through nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. And when these nicotinic acetylcholine receptors are activated by acetylcholine or nicotine, these receptors act as a low-pass filter. So it lets on tonic and phasic dopamine release, where the tonic, is this pointer working? Let's see. Okay, so these receptors act as a low-pass filter on tonic and phasic dopamine release, where tonic or low dopamine activity is enhanced, so that's why this is bigger, while phasic activity is reduced, and so it lets the low stimulations pass when they are activated. In contrast, when these receptors are blocked by antagonists, it removes that low-pass filter, so it decreases dopamine release, and at the same time it increases the phasic activity. And so the main thing that I've been finding in my research is that in intact, naturally cycling females, endogenous estradiol levels will enhance the activity of these nicotinic receptors, and it will make these receptors desensitized or not functional. And so I'm using new techniques and cyclic voltammetry to measure dopamine activity, and that's kind of what my postdoc work has been on. And so I use this work as a basis for my Mosaic K99 Career Development Award. So I wrote that. I procrastinate really well, so I was supposed to write that in 2019, but it was submitted in like February of 2020, like right before the pandemic hit. So I was having some issues in the lab, and I don't really like, so I like my lab. It was a lot of people, so it was hard for me to get a lot of work done in the lab. So when the pandemic hit and like everybody was forced to like get out of the lab, and then we were starting to trickle back in, it was kind of working a little better for me. So I was able to like get a lot of work done with the less amount of people there. So I'm getting all this work done, and then I find out that I get this K99. And again, this is a new type of K99 that the NIH has come up with. So this is another like program that I'm in, that I'm the first person, and they're still trying to figure out, there's still some kinks, but we're working through it. But I was able to get a lot of work done, and ended up going on the job market last year, so 2021. So my future lab will look at, the Brady lab will look at defining and characterizing sex-specific regulation of neural circuits and behaviors underlying substance use disorder. So a lot of my postdoc work, I looked at local accumbens microcircuits, and then in my lab I'll start to look at sex differences in a broader scope, looking at local circuitry within the entire accumbens. And then I'll bring in some of my graduate work, where I bring in the hippocampus to look at learning and memory deficits as it relates to addiction in both males and females, and then do all of that in vivo and behavior, and look at different environmental factors and see how that affects the activity of these mice. And so hopefully the overall implications of my lab will inform better pharmacotherapeutic approaches for treatment of substance use disorders and potentially other neuropsychiatric diseases in all affected subjects. And so with this work, I've been on the job market. I didn't know how it was going to go. I applied to 16 schools. There are some people that were applying to like 40 and 50, and I was like, that's too much. I'm not doing that. So 16 was my number, and and I didn't know how it was gonna go. So I got 11 interviews, and 7 offers, and now I'm trying to like figure out where I'm gonna go. So, thank you. So that's just another example of like when you follow your path, and you know, usually the signs, at least for me, will tell you where you need to go. I also have done a lot of, you know, DEI work, so I do a lot of panels with some of my colleagues from Alcorn who also kind of stayed in on the academic track, and so that ended up being my network. So you all are all your own, you know, each other's network. So, you know, use each other, help each other. It helps because I want to, at least I'm trying to do my part to at least change the culture of academia so it's not as terrible and depressing for some people. So, you know, and try to, you know, bring more people into the field. So I'll end with lift as you climb, which is what I try to do. So thank you for your time, and yeah. When was that? Oh, okay.
Would you like them to ask you questions?
I mean, yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Brady. We really appreciate that. I think we'll take about maybe like 5 minutes if there are any questions from the audience. Candidates first, if you would like to ask any questions.
I mean, I can hear you, but I can, sorry. We can do it like church and big brain.
It wouldn't be streaming if there wasn't some sort of difficulty.
If not, I can just repeat the question if you just, it's fine. If it's gonna take a while, yeah.
Well, first, Dr. Brady, thank you for coming to speak to us today. I did have one quick question about your graduate research. So I just noticed that you looked at PGC alpha knockout neurons. I was wondering if you ever looked into using optogenetics to either activate or deactivate neurons expressing the hippocampus that are associated with PGC expression.
Yeah, so, not with PGC1 alpha, I'm not gonna use that model because I want to stay away from the work from my graduate lab, but I am gonna use optogenetics to look at hippocampal projections to the accumbens in addiction and see how that is looking.
Any other questions from the candidates or anyone else?
I noticed, Osteen from Vanderbilt, so I noticed that you had a phenotype that was dependent on estrogen. Are you intending to look at some environmental disruptors that might impact estrogen as a component of the risk factors you're looking at?
Absolutely, absolutely. So right now we're going to look at diet and environmental pollutants and other types of like environmental deprivation or enrichment and see how that affects these sex differences, and also look at other types of hormones and see how they may be regulating these receptors. So not just estrogen and progesterone, but testosterone and all that stuff too. So yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question specifically about the second use of estradiol. I was wondering, have you considered looking at transgender patients who are undergoing hormone therapy and seeing if there's any like changes? With the supplements of estradiol or testosterone,
So I'm working with mice, and I'm gonna keep it there right now. But depending on where I go for my lab, there could be some clinical collaboration. So some of this work could be translated into humans, and we could potentially see. But I have been told from as being on certain interviews that they've tried a lot of like hormone therapy for treating addiction, and it didn't really work. So we're gonna have to find something else. Spells out, yeah.
well, I guess that might be a follow-up question. Like, why is that the case? Is it specifically in mouse models that you think really see that?
Yeah, what I've seen is specifically in mouse models, but yeah. No, that's a lot. That take a long time. I don't have the money for that.
Hey, many congratulations.
Thank
You are amazing and you have done tremendous work. So if I can ask you a career-related question. By the way, my name is CV Dash. I'm a professor here in this Center for AIDS, Health and Disparities Research. From your experience as a minority student and first in many of your achievements, in academia, if you have to advise one thing that we all or you can do to make a tangible change in their career, what it would be?
I don't know. I would try to reach back to students earlier, like, because I feel like we are missing a generation of people that don't even know that this is a viable field that you can succeed in. So I would probably try to encourage everyone to like reach back to high school and undergrads and let them know like you can do this, because it's hard to be what you can't see. So I didn't see my first black professor until I was in like neuroscience until I was a PhD student. So
Well, thank you. That's all the time we have for questions. If we can we give Dr. Brady another round of applause? And next, I would like to ask Dr. Woods to come to the mic to begin our our candidacy ceremony.
Good afternoon, I think, because I'm not aware of what time it is, but it's kind of been a long program, so I'm assuming we're at the afternoon hour. It is indeed my pleasure, my distinct honor, to be able to present to you our candidates for today. And as I prepare to present these candidates, I would that you would listen closely, because we have some interesting things to share about these students. Our first candidate, Miss LaKendria Brown, hails from Memphis, Tennessee. Miss Brown's academic career path began at Xavier University, where she earned a BS in biology. She continued her training at the University of Memphis. So here's the other thing. Thank you. Somebody switch that for me. She continued her training at the University of Memphis, earning a master's degree in biological sciences. LaKendria's program of study is cancer biology in the Department of Biochemistry, Cancer Biology, Neuroscience, and Pharmacology. She is the senior student in the laboratory of Dr. Xingban Chen, where she is completing her dissertation research entitled Understanding the Molecular Interactions of KDM5B and SCIP2 in Prostate Cancer. Ms. Brown's tenacity and commitment to a career in science has afforded her the privilege of being a recipient of the Gates Millennial Scholarship awarded to outstanding African American students. Dr. Chen, LaKendria's dissertation research mentor, will present her with her white coat at this time. Dr. Chen. All right. Our next candidate is Mr. Ayurinde Cooley. Some students at Meharry choose to complete a dual degree, gaining admission to both medical school and the School of Graduate Studies. Ayurinde is one such student. If you guys will just give me just a chance to give an introduction, and then we'll call the mentors up to do the actual presentation. As I was saying, Ayurinde is one such student who is pursuing a dual degree. Cooley is a native of Silver Spring, Maryland, and a graduate of Morehouse College, where he earned a BS degree in biology. At the completion of 2 years of medical school and successfully passing Part 1 of the United States Medical Licensing Examination, Cooley elected to complement his MD degree with a PhD. He joined the laboratory of Dr. Sid Pratap and is co-mentored by Drs. Fernando Vialta and Dr. Pius Indy. Cooley's dissertation research is entitled Whole Transcriptome Bioinformatics Analysis of Acute Phase Chagas Disease. Today, Dr. Pratap will present Cooley with his white coat. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you so much. At Meharry, we have lots of fun. Our next candidate, Evan Chaudhary, is a native of Nashville, Tennessee. Prior to his matriculation at Meharry, Evan attended the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, where he majored in and earned a BS degree in biochemistry. Evan has chosen an interdisciplinary pathway in which his program of study is cancer biology in the Department of Biochemistry, Cancer Biology, Neuroscience, and Pharmacology. However, he has elected to do HIV research under the mentorship of Dr. Chandra Vanu Dash. The title of Evan's research is The Role of CPS F6 in HIV-1 Pre-Integration Complex Function. Dr. Dash, Evan's dissertation research mentor, will present him with his white coat at this time. Dr. Dash. If I might take a point of privilege, I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Minu Chaudhary, Evan's mother, who is a faculty member at Meharry, teaching a faculty member in the Department of Microbiology and Immunology and Physiology. We help each other, yes we do.
Now you know why I go by CV, because pronouncing my name is a PhD thesis.
All right, our next candidate, Tony Ferris, is from Atlanta, Georgia, arriving in Nashville to complete a BS degree in biology at Tennessee State University. With a drive to pursue a career in biomedical sciences, she traveled down the street to Meharry Medical College and joined the Department of Biochemistry, Cancer Biology, Neuroscience, and Pharmacology to complete her program of study in neuroscience. She is currently completing her dissertation research in the laboratory of Dr. Anil Shankar, and the title of her dissertation research project is The Role of Mitochondrial FUS1 in Behavioral and Neuroimmunological Activity. Dr. Shankar, Tony's dissertation research mentor, will present her with her white coat at this time. Zanaya Mark hails from Greensboro, North Carolina. She is a graduate of Fayetteville State University, where she earned a BS in chemistry. Pursuing her interest in cancer biology, she too joined the Department of Biochemistry, Cancer Biology, Neuroscience, and Pharmacology. She is a student in Dr. Chen's laboratory, and the title of her research is The Molecular Impact of FOXA1 Dysregulation in Prostate Cancer Malignancies. Dr. Chen, Zanaya's dissertation research, will present her with her white coat at this time. Joni Martin, a native of New Orleans, Louisiana, began her career in science at North Carolina A&T, where she completed both a bachelor's and master's degree. She earned a BS degree in laboratory animal science and a master's degree in agricultural and environmental sciences. She has continued to expand her scientific background in microbiology and immunology in the Department of Microbiology, Immunology, and Physiology. She is mentored by Dr. Bing Dong Lu, and the title of her dissertation research is The Mechanism of Cellular ApoBec 3G Against HIV-1 Infection in the Target Cell. Dr. Lu will present her with her white coat at this time. Y'all stand there for just a minute because I forgot to flip your picture, so we want everybody to see you. Just stand there and smile. All right. All right. Gerald Nwasu. Gerald is a native of Little Rock, Arkansas. He began his science career at Tennessee State University in Nashville, Tennessee, where he earned a BS in biology. He traveled down the street to Meharry to begin his graduate career in neuroscience in the Department of Biochemistry, Cancer Biology, Neuroscience, and Pharmacology. Currently, he is completing his dissertation research in the Department of Neurology at Vanderbilt University under the mentorship of Dr. Katie Kane. The title of his dissertation research is Investigating PLIC1 Rescue Mechanisms for Developmental and Epileptic Encephalopathies. In the absence of his mentor, I will do the honor of presenting Gerald with his white coat. on trypanosoma cruzi pathogenesis, dysregulation of gene expression, and cellular signaling in colon and heart cells during early phase of infection. Dr. Indy, her dissertation mentor, will present Kayla with her white coat. Last and certainly not least is Jelani Rumpf. A native of Orlando, Florida, she completed her BS degree in biology from Florida Memorial University. Currently, Jelani is a student in the microbiology and immunology program in the Department of Microbiology, Immunology, and Physiology. She has chosen to complete her dissertation research in the Women's Health Research Center at Vanderbilt University under the mentorship of Dr. Kaylin Bruner-Tran. The title of her dissertation research project is Paternal Fish Oil Diet Preconception Reduces the Risk of Toxicant-Driven Necrotizing Enterocolitis and Bronchopulmonary Dysplasia in Neonatal Mice. Dr. Bruner-Tran, Jelani's dissertation mentor, will present Jelani with her white coat. This concludes the presentation of our candidates. Would you please join me in a warm welcome of applause, not welcome, but a warm applause for the students and what they've been able to accomplish in the midst of a difficult season. Dr. Brady, thank you for your inspiring message and encouraging our students to recall that though the road may be difficult, success is possible. Thank you for your transparency. Thank you for your encouraging words. And to the students, I say keep on keeping on. The best is yet to come.
Thank you very much. And next, I would like to ask our Dean, Dr. Motley, to come to the mic to do the candidacy oath.
Will all the candidates please stand? After you'll find in your program book the oath of candidacy, and we will repeat this together, and where it says state your name, you can state your name. And I won't state my name. Okay. All right. As a candidate, I solemnly swear to pursue excellence in my field, apply the highest standards of ethics, conduct myself at all times with integrity, respect, and dignity, be an example for the next generation of graduate students, nurture my dreams and keep sight of my goals, even in times of adversity, represent Meharry Medical College well, and be an ambassador for the institution, and aspire for the benefit of all mankind. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you very much, Dr. Motley, and congratulations again to our candidates. First and foremost, I would like to express my appreciation to our speaker, Dr. Lillian Brady, for her valuable contribution to the program, the remembrance of Dr. George H. Howard, Jr., and acknowledgement of doctoral candidates in the School of Graduate Studies and Research. On behalf of the Graduate Student Association, our deepest gratitude goes to all who attended and streamed today's lecture and ceremony. We would also like to send a sincerest thank you to all who helped to make it such a successful event. Last, before we end today's proceedings, we would like to remind all to uplift and carry our college's motto, worship of God through service to mankind within our community. Thank you all and have a blessed day. And that's it. For candidates, if you will, come to the stage. We would like to get a picture for our school social media. And if any of we'll do one pictures with the candidates, and then if their mentor is here, you are more than welcome to join for another. Yes, on the stage.